Roberta, Master Life Coach, NLP practitioner. Why can a single personal development event change someone's life more than years trying to figure things out alone?
That's a great question. And there are many answers to that. I think that in every group settings, whatever is going on is so amplified. And when we try to do things on our own, we're just relying on what we know. But there is so much that we don't know, right? And as Einstein says, you cannot fix a problem at the level of thinking at which you created it. So if we're left to our own devices, yes, we may learn some new knowledge. However, we're still thinking in the same ways, and there is so much that we're not aware of that is still in our way. On the contrary, when we receive guidance and support from other people, when they're there working as mirrors for us, so what they're going through or what we don't like in them or what's triggering about them says so much about us. Also, when we are in a group and somebody else is receiving coaching, our ego can relax. It's like, okay, I'm not on the spotlight. And so I can listen more openly. And that's where we get so many breakthroughs because we don't feel that that thing is about us. And so we are more open to receive it. There's also the situation where we may not be aware of what we are going through, and somebody else is living the same situation but is ahead of us. And so they have the terms to verbalize that situation. They are more aware. And by them sharing, we get this light bulb moment where, oh my God, it's exactly what's happening to me, but I wasn't even able to explain it myself. And then there is also the fact that when we step into a group, we somehow tune to all others. So it becomes a collective experience where we can all draw from. So in short, one group event can amplify your growth so much more and help you get to places where on your own, for a whole series of reasons, you cannot reach.
Yes, all that. And I love the way that you went super practical with the different examples of how it happens, right? We need to be surrounded by people that reflect us. Then why do you think you cannot use AI as your therapist or coach?
I think that AI, can help you to some extent, but first of all, it's lacking the human touch that we are also craving for and so need. And also because there is, we're all such an intricate web of things that have happened to us, limiting beliefs, survival strategies. So AI can just give the right answer for a situation, but it's not taking into account all the rest that makes us human and that characterizes our life. While a coach can take so much else into account because it's there with you, has known you for a longer time, sees how you react, can notice, what's going on in your face, on your body posture, all things that AI cannot pick up on.
No, totally. Going back to that transformational event, so you say something about witnessing other people experiencing transformation also transforms in you. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh my God, yes. Yes, so many times. And also, I'll tell you, I just came back from Region Extreme, which are these great transformational workshops where, in fact, we met around 2 years and a half ago.
Almost 3.
And as I now go back as a facilitator to these embodiment and somatic workshops. And I had my 2 biggest breakthroughs from people sharing what they were going through. So if they hadn't been in that room and if I hadn't witnessed them going through their whole unfolding and unraveling of their thoughts, of their emotions, I wouldn't have received my biggest breakthrough. And so that's one more example of why a coach setting a group setting is way more powerful than when you're alone. However, earlier on you said, yes, we need people to mirror things to us. But more importantly, we need to have the courage to receive that mirroring. Because, people can mirror you back all that you want, but if you don't have the vulnerability, even the humbleness to say, oof, okay, if I'm noticing this, that says something about me, So a lot of us is also required to be able to receive that mirroring and make sense of it.
And how does someone train that, right? Because if they're stuck in their patterns of, no, like I'm the person that's right, how can I actually start to break through those patterns?
So the first answer for me would really be to have someone there, like a coach, helping you to notice that, helping you, reminding you that people are mirrors for us, that what we see in others is often a perception filtered by our beliefs. So there must be someone giving you all this context, reminding you that what you disapprove and judge in others may be something that you wish to have yourself, that you're not allowing yourself to have, or that is a part of you that you don't like. So by setting this context, then it can help you move past the initial resistance and finally start opening to really go and look for what's the golden nugget there for you. Because if this has been put in front of you, and maybe it's not even the first time, I call it, that's a gift if we are able to perceive it in that way, to receive it in that way. So to answer your question, I would say guidance from someone who knows about that, and then again, humbleness and opening to receive and to go deeper and dig and start questioning ourselves.
And I imagine that you're currently working with different clients. What seems to be the pattern around certain things they're still stuck on, or the gifts that they are constantly receiving but they don't notice?
Yeah. So I used to live in London and I recently moved back to Italy. And so I started having more Italian clients. And I can tell you that something that, I mean, it's a universal problem, but I feel it's a big one, for example, for my Italian clients, is fear of judgment, especially when you come from small towns with a narrow minded mentality. You may know the like. So, fear of judgment is a big thing that is keeping people stuck. And another thing that I have many clients working on is their abundance mindset. Yeah. And one of the things that people don't realize is that one of the biggest obstacles to abundance is the inability to receive. So, and that means so many things. Doesn't just meaning receiving a compliment, receiving the sum of money, receiving help. It's so multifaceted. But it's fascinating how people do not realize that they have to play a part because abundance is there, but they're not open to receive it. So, and therefore and receiving, as I said, translates in so many things. So maybe it's also stopping them from going for opportunities. So it's making them refrain from expanding because they don't want to ask for help or receive support. So it becomes always a bigger thing that they realize. But so I would say these two things in my experience: fear of judgment and inability to receive.
Yeah, the receiving part is probably something that's, again, even more universal, right? We work in a capitalist society, but we also work in a place where people want to gift stuff because of society says so, but we're never focused on how we should gift ourselves, right? So how do we train receivership, for example? How, if you could say 3 steps for someone that hates receiving stuff, doesn't know how to receive a gift. Every time they say, hey, what do you want as a gift? They say, I don't know, whatever you want.
Okay, so I can tell you some practical tips because it's always interesting to understand what's behind the inability to receive, right? Maybe there may be a piece of deservingness. People don't believe that they deserve to receive gifts or whatever. Or there may be the fear of being perceived as weak or incompetent if you receive help. So there's a whole set of beliefs, right, that we would need to analyze. However, just to answer your question in practical terms, the great thing is that receiving is a muscle. Like everything in life is a muscle that you can train. So you can train receiving starting from the smallest things, like a compliment. How many of us are not even able to receive a compliment? Oh, what a beautiful top you're wearing. Oh, come on, I bought it at the market. Oh, it's only, $10. Like we are downplaying it rather than training ourselves to just breathe into that space and saying, thank you, I receive. So even just this very easy thank you, I receive, because we have a tendency by now deeply rooted, maybe 30 years of, immediately saying something to protect us from this feeling of being uncomfortable. So if we have to say something, then let's make it thank you, I receive. So that can be one. And then another way to practice receiving can even just be developing more presence, because there is so much happening all the time and we just do not notice it. So we can just practice receiving by sitting 5 minutes on a bench in the open air and just, receive the sunlight, receive the breeze on our face. That's also an exercise in receiving, a conscious receiving, which also makes us, by the way, aware of how much abundance is already present. We just don't have the eyes trained to look for it. And now you ask me for a third one, a third way to receive abundance. Ask for a hug and just receive it without feeling the need to hug back. So that's when we are the most vulnerable, right? With all our body there in the arms of somebody else, how much are we able to let them in? Without feeling, staying in the uncomfort of not hugging back, but just really receiving. So these are small practices that can help developing, more opening, which then is the same opening that you can have to bigger things that may come your way.
Yeah, those were golden. Those were golden for everyone. For everyone who wants to go back, replay those last 3 powerful tips is gonna learn how to receive, because many, like, society in a way trains us to, hey, you want to go and get stuff. You want to take versus ask or receive.
Yes. Yes. And that's also something that, for example, I keep repeating when I talk about abundance. I love to talk about the 4R. People think that abundance, and like you mentioned, is something that you have to reach and run after, like something that is outside and you need to work towards it. But on the contrary, it's something that you recognize and receive because it's already there, but we just don't have our eyes trained to see it. And even when we see it, we're not trained to receive it. So,
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, tell me more, because you have a program called Dance with Abundance, and you work with people around that. How's that process? What have people said about the program? How do you help them find dance? How do you help them dance with abundance?
yeah. So until now, the course has been an intensive one, 24 days course. And it's a very practical one, which is centered around 3 main areas. As I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons why people don't experience the abundance that they would like to have has to do with worthiness. So many people don't believe that they deserve it, that they're worth of it. And so we work on them realizing that they are walking miracles, that abundance is a birthright, that just by being, we deserve all the best in the world. We don't need to work hard for it. So we work on that. Then there is the second block, which is making space for abundance. Because from an energetic point of view, where energy aligns with similar energy, abundance, which is, if I ask you, what is abundance for you?
Yeah, abundance is
You were not expecting a counter question.
no abundance for me is God. It's the world. It's how everything is manifested with unlimited opportunities.
Hmm. And if you were to associate some feelings to it, what would it be?
Expansion, joy, the feeling of plenty, the feeling of fulfillment.
Okay, I love this, all this. And even just these words that you're mentioning, right? Expansion. If something is so cluttered and filled and compressed, can't really expand much because it feels like the space is already occupied. And joy cannot come in if this space is all occupied with sadness, frustration, resentment, regrets, scarcity. Like it's energies that do not align. So, in order to receive more abundance, we have to make space for it. And we can make space physically as well as internally. And by internally, I really mean getting rid of shame, of guilt, of all this heavy emotional load that we've been carrying on for so long. So there's all that work. And finally, we practice receiving. A bit of giving, a bit of asking, but above all, receiving. So until now, as I said, it was a 24 days course. I'm working on transforming into a more relaxed paced 10-week course. And the point is really to train people to recognize abundance everywhere. Because it's always been there. We were just not taught where to look for it and how it's supposed to look like. In fact, you also had to think about it. So many people wouldn't know. I love to put this question: if abundance were to knock on your door tomorrow, would you recognize it? Because we may have this idea, some people have not even entertained the really what abundance is because they've always perceived it as something out there that they haven't been able to reach. And so they just don't even consider what abundance can be. Yeah. And it's a course that I've run it 5 times, both in Italian and in English so far. The result has always been amazing. Like, honestly, it went beyond my expectations. And I also love the title of the course, Dance with Abundance, because as in dance, you need to stay present, feel the rhythm, you know, trust your partner. There can't be abundance without trust. You have to trust that everything is happening for your own benefit, that there's plenty that will always be there. So you have to, really trust your partner and follow the nudge when you're dancing. And in the same way with abundance, it's really like recognizing, noticing, follow the signs, follow what's being put in front of you, respond to what's happening. So, and also because we dance a bit at the beginning of each session.
There you go.
The component, yeah.
I love it. And through teaching this as well, because you've been in a bunch of containers around abundance and you claiming your own abundance. What's been your transformation from being in a course to actually embodying it yourself and teaching it to others?
Yeah. Ooh, what a beautiful question. I think that the biggest embodiment for me is like having such a still mindset, meaning having the unshakable belief that whatever is happening for me. I may not see it now, and that's where trust comes in, but it has already happened so many times in my life that what looked like negative turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to me just a few months later or 1 year later, that by now I know how to suspend my belief, my judgment, and just wait and trust that things will give me answers. So I don't panic, I don't do anxiety, because I know that everything is basically rigged in my favor. And also, I think that the biggest change that abundance has brought in my life is continuously seeing so many possibilities everywhere. Like, I knew that I was a brainstorming queen. I already knew that I could see so many options. But now it feels like really abundance is, means that everything is possible at all the times. And, I live by this. I live by this belief that we are divine beings living in a world of infinite possibilities. And when that is your default mindset, you understand how you approach life in a very resourceful way.
Yeah, talking about resourcefulness, yes. What's the difference between having resources and being resourceful for you?
To be honest, I see them quite connected. I mean, the first answer that comes to my mind would be that having resources could be, something material, whether that's money or whether that's connections that you can have, um, even, knowledge and competencies. And being resourceful is this MacGyver style mentality, like knowing that there's always a way out. In fact, I tell you, possibly one of the sentences that my coach and also our coach, Preston Smiles, keeps repeating and that I loved and that had a big impact on me was find a way out of no way. So being resourceful for me is knowing that there's always more than one way out of any situation. And so, being resourceful means believing in yourself, being flexible, being creative. So maybe being resourceful is more about an inner state, and having resources is more about something outside. But there's also a big connection between the two.
Yes, and it requires your resourcefulness to actually recognize the resources.
Exactly, exactly. And to develop more and to understand which other resources you may need to move forward.
I I really admire you and your capacity to trust, and I think that's been a through line through your life, around from writing your first book that says "Universe, I trust you," right, to going back and forth to the US and becoming a really cool coach and someone that's in this space. So tell me, how can someone start trusting more themselves and the world?
Yeah. So in my case, trust really came from seeing how day after day, left to, doing her thing, life was just surprising me over and over, making things happen that were way better than what I could have organized if I had forced, scheduled, planned. So when you see this happening, when you have a constant proof, when things turned out to be beyond your imagination, then you're like, oh my God, then, if I let life do its thing, it has, first of all, so much more fantasy than I do. And secondly, it's imbued with such perfection that, I couldn't have remotely imagined it from my small human perspective. It's funny that when I published my book, Universe I Trust You, which is about my 3 months experiment of traveling without planning anything, because I wanted to see how life is when you take it as it comes, without any attachments, without any expectations. And it was a trip that changed my life. That's, when I became a life coach, it's because of a vision that I had in Nepal. And some of the first readers who read it were like, oh, yeah, you did your own surrender experiment. And I had never heard about this book, Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. Funnily enough, I finished it 3 days ago, and I was just mind blown, astonished. And he keeps saying, I could only surrender to life's perfection. He keeps talking about life's perfection so much. And that's the story of a man who, throughout his life, had decided to put aside any of his likes or dislikes or what he actually wanted to do and just accept what was put in front of him. And so he has a whole life to speak about that. I only have 6 or 7 years of this philosophy, But I mean, what incredible things have already happened. Like even the thing that the book won an award without me remotely thinking and ending up projected in Times Square on the Nasdaq billboard. Like, how on earth could I have ever even imagined that that was, I didn't even know it was a possibility, right? So for me, it's really about embracing things, deciding not to oppose them, co-create, which is also, I find it way easier than, opposing, resistance, wanting to go against. It's like, okay, be with what is and learn to love it. And you may be surprised how things will unfold.
Yeah, and going back to again what you say about the dance, right? You cannot dance if you are just pushing.
Yeah. You end up stepping on the other person's toes and it gets something like, it looks like you are dancing with a silent disco. One is dancing one rhythm, the other one is dancing another. So, no.
Yeah. So you just mentioned something about traveling, right? How important do you think traveling is for someone's development?
Huge. Huge. I also say that in my book. Growth is all about going out of your comfort zone. So traveling necessarily brings you out of that because you are put in a new culture, completely different environment and people, situations that in your everyday life, very likely you're not used to face. And also, you have more time to think, to reflect, even to just notice people because you can learn so much simply by observing them. You can interact. You can have, you are more prone to do things that normally you wouldn't do. Like I did a 10 days meditation Vipassana retreat when I was in Nepal, which is something that I had never meditated before, but it felt so good for the zone, the exotic zone where I was. And so you let new parts of you come to surface. It's both an unveiling, like you discover more things of you, and at the same time, you're also putting new things in you. And you just have all this time to really focus on yourself and what tickles your curiosity, what makes you feel good, rather than spending days on automatic pilot, working, doing something that maybe you don't enjoy, dealing with problems. So traveling is huge in your growth.
Mm. Could you tell a specific story around a lesson you learned besides trusting and abundance that you learned through your travels?
Oof. You know what? The first thing that comes to my mind is stranger's kindness. And again, this is also something that I repeat in my book because too often I hear people, especially I've heard it a lot when we start talking about who would like to become a mother or a father. And I hear it, oh no, I'm not going to bring a child into this evil world that is doing so badly. And I'm like, oh my God, it's just because that's what the news and the press is drawing your attention to. But there is way, way, way more good in this world. It's just that it's not as allowed as the bad, or it doesn't receive that much attention. And I know how many times I've been helped by strangers' kindness. How many angels in disguise have been sent, whether to say the right word when I need it or to provide a little gesture that changed my mood, or who invited me to share a meal with them when, maybe I was feeling a bit lonely traveling on my own. So, I mean, there are countless examples where I've just been reminded that we're all connected and that there are so many people who are ready to give and enjoy giving. And that help is always available, always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is connected to abundance, goes back to abundance, right?
Yeah, there's an abundance of people that want to help you win.
Yes. And yes. And sometimes it's not only necessarily people. Sometimes it can be a dog that runs your way and is just giving you so many cuddles. And sometimes it's, I remember I remember like an incredible sunset that I saw in Mexico. And I felt it was such a gift that I needed in that moment. So, it's not necessarily people. In that case, it was God sending a gift through nature. But, again, when you learn to see abundance everywhere and when you learn to receive it, then everything becomes, a practice in that.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought of, well, you have the traveling outside, right? Traveling the world, and you are traveling the world. Now you're also doing a journey inside through the coaching, right?
Yes. Yes. What a journey.
What a journey! What a journey! Yeah. What are some edges that you're coming up against in your own journey through coaching?
Some limiting beliefs are so deeply rooted. And even when we think that we've worked a lot, there's always another layer. And so I can, for example, something that came up for me in this recent Breach and Extreme was realizing how still the identity that I've conformed to for most of my life, the good girl, is still refraining me from fully expressing myself. And so that's the edge now, like learning to own my voice more, which means not simply expressing what I want and what I'm thinking, but means also going against other people if that means being in favor of myself, right? Like the good girl would have never done that because, oh my God, of course you don't go against people. Of course you don't, you just want to be liked by everybody. You don't do that. But it's not about being against them. It's about embodying myself more and more and fully expressing my soul more and more. So at the moment, these are the edges, like really, again, the good girl mentality and how sneaky it can be in how many things it can come out. And yeah, and also some limiting beliefs probably around money still. I come from a region in Italy where I was raised with save, 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 just use the money that you have, not to mention all the other things. Money doesn't grow on trees. Money is only the result of hard work. And though I've done so much repatterning and reconditioning around these beliefs, I realized that there's still some work to do. I mean, in general, there's always another layer. But I see it, especially in my business at the moment. I'm going through a transition, and this requires me, to up-level, and up-leveling of my beliefs is required too. So that's where I'm working at the moment.
And there's always this bigger level for coaches around, yeah, like the business. It's both the vehicle for their other people's growth, but they're also their own sustenance and evolution, right? So there's always this balance of, you want to help all these people, but you also want to support yourself, because if you're supporting yourself, you're not in survival mode, and then you help in a better way.
Yes, 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 that's for sure. And also, like thinking about all the time and the tears, oh my God, that I've invested in getting to where I am, like the time, the study. There was a friend of mine who said, Robbie, you are a walking experiment. Like every time I talk with you, you are doing something new. Like for 20 days, you can't ask why. Now you are supposed every day to sit on a bench and just, be present. Yeah, another time that I meet you, you are just focused on giving. Like every time I'm trying so many things, and then I'm doing dating, sobriety, getting ready for my king. Like I've been trying so many things, and so this journey that I've been on, where I've invested so much, not only financially, but as I say, energy, time, um, of course needs to get rewarded, because I've gone through all of that so that people can can have a shorter journey.
Yeah.
Because whatever I'm taking my clients to is something that I've gone through. I walk the talk. Integrity is a big thing for me. And so I come with so much experience, lived on experience, not only knowledge, but really experience of things that I've tried and I've gone through. That is an immense gift, and are things that, you know, people wouldn't necessarily go through in their life. And so all these definitely, to be honest, is priceless.
Mm-hmm. And going back to that experience, right? Because you've been a powerful and masterful experimenter. Out of those experiments, which are things that you believed before and you no longer believe now?
Phew, I would have to go through, I would have to sit down and think about. But for example, I just mentioned this example of not asking for why. So I grew up asking why. I always wanted to know. There's even, you know, I'm a big Rocky fan. Just so you know, like when I was a teenager, my Facebook name was Robbie Balboa. And there is a sentence in one of Rocky's songs that goes, I'm not asking for another chance. I just want to know why. I'm not asking for another chance. I just want to know why. And that sentence for me, like I wrote it on the first page of every journal when I was a teenager. I'm like, I just want to know why. Like my inquisitive mind, if I know, then I can justify, I can accept, I can understand. And so then I was doing Elementum, the course with, you know, the four monsters. There were Christine Hassler, Stefano Sifandos, Preston Smiles, and Alexi Panos. And my coach back then gave me this exercise: do not ask for why for 21 days, and let's see. And I was like, oh my God, it's just gonna, like, I can't live without knowing why. That's me. Robbie is the why knower. And I discovered that, one, I can survive without knowing why, and that sometimes people themselves don't know the why of the reason of their action. And sometimes, you know, like, especially when you're looking for closure and you would like to know why, people's reasons may not make sense to you because it's not you thinking them. You would never come up with their reasons because you start from a completely different mindset. So even when you're provided with their reasons, it makes no sense. So you may as well just embrace the fact and let it speak for itself without trying to contextualize. So, I mean, there would be more to say, but this is an example of where I was like, no, I don't want to. I love my depth. I love my inquisitive mind. That's what makes me different from others. So why do you want to take this away from me? But it also showed me that I can live anyway, and to an extent, I also live better without this need to always constantly know. So it was a sort of liberation. And I mean, I could think about some other examples if you want. For example, yeah, when we were required to do dating sobriety for 2 months, I did a course called Be the Queen with Christine Hassler. And I was like, but the point of this course is to find a king, to find our man. So why do you then ask us, why? Why do you ask us for 2 months to not remotely approach any man or be approached by them? Like, it felt so the opposite of what we wanted to achieve. But at the end of it, I acknowledged how necessary it was for us to become aware of all the thoughts that we were carrying around dating, around relationships, and have the time to reprogram our conscious beliefs. And you can't do that if you are in the middle of a situation where all these beliefs get constantly triggered and tested and reinforced. So that time was necessary. And there was something very good in the dating sobriety, which for me was like, no, like, life is about interaction, is about putting yourself out there. So it was something that I resisted initially, but then I'm like, yes, it was needed and useful.
Love it. Yeah. And again, I acknowledge that part of wanting to challenge, but in order to really deepen our beliefs, you must be able to challenge them, right? And you have this integration phase where you don't go this way and you don't go this way, you go in the middle. But you only learn that if you go to both sides, right? So let's go now to back to your program and what's in the works for Roberta. So what's the vision for 2026 in the coaching journey? What's going to happen?
Oof. So my vision for now is really to make the course Dance with Abundance grow and reach as many people as possible. I honestly believe that it can help people change their life. And I don't say this lightly. I've done so many courses where I felt that, yeah, it was just a bunch of knowledge that didn't really translate into big changes in my life. But what I've seen over and over with the students who took it so far, and it's something so simple, right? And that's why it's available to everyone. And it's such a practical exercise. For example, the 3 tips that I gave you earlier about receiving are just 3 of the 40 plus exercises that there are to practice the, recognizing abundance, receiving it, making space for it. So yes, there is some theory, but there is a lot of practical exercises, some which are very funny, really to make abundance a lived-in experience, because that's where the real change happens, when you bring it in your body. So I'm just concentrating at the moment on transforming it into a 10-week course, as I mentioned earlier. And of course, I'm planning to be again to Bridge and Extreme in October, because that in itself is not only an incredible experience from a professional point of view for me as a coach, learning from those masters, because proximity is power. So when you're surrounded by these great coaches, each of them with their unique niche, with their unique style, there is so much to learn professionally, but also personally, both from the students and from them. Every time I come home, I feel a new person. So there's also that. And then, of course, continue supporting my one-to-one clients. In particular, this year, I'm going to focus more on the growth of my business. Like until now, it's been a lot of formation, relationship-wise, or mindset-wise, or abundance-wise. So I was doing, all these sort of courses. For the next year, I've enrolled in a year mentorship, which of course is going to have some effects on my mindset too. But it's going to be a lot of learning about sales, marketing. And so let's see.
Excited.
See what comes out of it.
So where can people find out more about the course, and how can people find you?
Yeah. So the best place to find me is Instagram, because I'm quite present there, and it's at Roberta Mussato. I'm planning to launch the new course around May. I don't have a fixed date yet, but it's coming out soon. And so if people listening to this would like to get in the waiting list, or would like to get more info, they can simply DM me, and I will be glad to support them in whatever they want to discover.
Excited. Yeah. To finalize this, Roberta, what is one belief of abundance that you can leave people with today, that they can take home with them?
Abundance begins the moment you stop fighting with life. When you just start loving what is, noticing what is, loving what is. Abundance is everywhere. Abundance is remembrance, is remembering that we came here as perfect children who were, like, I love spending time with children because they are so joyful. Everything is a discovery. they have no filters. You know, they are so aligned, and alignment is such a powerful energy to attract even more abundance. And I'm gonna stop here, otherwise, otherwise I'm gonna disclose everything. And I want people to discover more by coming to my course.
All right, Roberta, it's been a beautiful experience. Thank you so much for your time. And
Thank you for having me.
see you soon.
It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.